Okay, we good? All right, good evening. This is Pamela Hutchke, Vice Chair of the School Committee. It is 6 o'clock on the dot, and I call the meeting of the Southwick Granville Regional School Committee to order. Could I please have a motion to open the meeting?
Second.
All right, and I will take a vote to open the meeting. Vote passes 500. Please join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so it is now time for the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion. I believe it only includes the minutes of the last meeting, May 23rd. So I will entertain a motion to accept the meeting minutes for the May 23rd school meeting. Second. Any questions or comments on the meeting minutes? And I don't believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do not believe that there was anything in addition to that. Or consent agenda items, correct? Yeah, no, we're good. Okay. Shall we vote? Okay, I'll take vote to accept the meeting minutes. Vote passes 500. Warrants are circulating. I know I need to sign them. Does anybody else need to sign them? Everyone else. If you wanted to do Judy. Yeah, because it's when does it come?
After the educational presentation.
Yeah. Do we want to move that forward? You want to do it during correspondence? Can we do it during correspondence? Okay, because that would be next. So correspondence is next. So Superintendent Willard, do you have any correspondence this evening?
I do. It's actually an action item. And if I could have Judy come up here, please. I have to read it. It's very, very tricky language, and I have to make sure I read it exactly perfectly. So you get to hold your award. And wait till I read you the number on here of how many years she has been with our district. It is quite amazing. So be it resolved that the Southwick Granville Regional School Committee hereby extends its congratulations to Judy Frenette in recognition of 34 years of paraprofessional excellence. And when I say excellence, I mean excellence. We hereby convey our sincere appreciation for your valuable efforts, your dedicated service, and assistance rendered, which has enhanced the image of the Southwick Granville Regional Schools, and a record of these resolutions shall be permanently entered into the minutes of this school district. And personally, I'm going to say I'm going to miss you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations. We have to get it. Okay. Get it fixed. And you take pictures? Here. 34 years.
I think Rob was in 3rd grade.
Oh, that is amazing. It is. That was absolutely amazing. Too. Awesome.
I drank him on.
Yeah,
that's well, you should.
Trying to get the stupid thing to work. Must have been all that smoke that's floating around. So.
We lost that now.
Judy's like,
throw it against the wall.
Huh?
Can I throw it?
No. I saw a couple of us. Well, thank you very much, Judy.
thank you, so much for coming tonight, because it means so much more when we can actually give the recognition, so everybody can see who the person is, and truly to be recognized for 34 years of day in and day out care
That is amazing.
of our children. And it wasn't just a job to her, it truly was a career, and you made a difference in the lives of a lot of children.
I've seen a lot.
Yeah. I just need to say thank you.
Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Okay. Oh, sorry. It was like, I'm looking at the agenda.
I know, I pulled it up on the computer and said, oh. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
I have to go. I have my house alarm's going off. I have another water issue.
Good.
Sorry. Up to you. Go ahead.
We have 4. So we do need to vote to accept that resolution. So I will, do I have? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we didn't do that.
I think we need to, yeah, I need to accept a motion to vote to accept the, resolution.
motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so now we can take a vote to accept the resolution, yes?
Yeah.
Okay, so vote passes 4-0. Okay, so it is now time for public comment. I think that we have all the school district personnel here. So unless you'd like to make a public comment, I think we can move on. Lucas, you are just in time.
That's right.
For our second advisory report, best part of the meeting.
Of course.
Hey, were you in the RAM when I was asking if it was you?
Oh, see, I got a ton of people telling me, a lot of people were asking you, Lucas, were you in the RAM? It was not me.
Okay.
No, it was a friend of mine, but
Okay.
it was not me.
Right.
Um,
Not feeling the love.
one day though. Once for a pep rally, for another rally, so hopefully.
So that's if you're in the band, it might be hard to be.
That's true,
You know?
yeah.
Okay, they saw it as Royal Day concert. So not.
We don't have too much. Obviously, graduation was held last Saturday. Seniors were celebrating for all their successes in high school and futures. And we wish good nothing but the best for them in everything. Although, if I may say, I will not miss them trampling me in the halls. I always had to run to their cars. I understand why, but
Maybe we'll do next year, right?
that might be me. You never know.
Maybe you'll figure it out.
And the SRS band performed in Memorial Day Parade last week. And also, not too much into sports, but I believe yesterday and today we were doing the decathlon at Frontier High School. And a friend of mine in my math class told me apparently he's in like first place right now. So we're doing pretty good.
So
Okay.
Devin, am I
Devin,
correct? Devin is in first place right now, or at least he was as of last night.
Yeah.
And he's currently a junior. Matt, who just graduated, Matt Coviello.
Okay.
He was in third place as of yesterday. And then Aaron Petchke is the youngest member to participated in the decathlon. So Aaron Petchke is participating in the decathlon as well, as he is highly inspired and coached by his upperclassmen.
Oh, that's
Awesome. That's right.
That was about it.
All right.
Not too much this time, but you know, it's starting to
Finals coming
quiet
up.
down.
finals coming.
Yeah, you know, we got finals. And MCAS
Finals.
was, I think tomorrow was the last day,
Yeah.
I think, for physics, and then we're done.
Finals and I ready
Finals and I ready.
next week.
Mind me.
I know, everyone's favorite. I'm ready.
You know what would be really fascinating if you really put in the effort? It's like would be super exciting to see where you score. Make it a competition.
That's true. I mean,
Good try.
it's true.
Carmen.
Free candy for whoever wins. It's cool.
The benefit of twins, all right, they do that with each other, I'm just saying. And then I have to hear about it. Right? All right, so it is now time for. All right, first educational presentation. So who's up first? Robin, are you up first?
We're together.
Oh, we're doing it together.
Yes.
All right, come and join us.
So we decided to do a joint talk because there's definitely places where we intersect in terms of the 504s and the IEPs. And then there are also places where we are separate. So we put this PowerPoint together, and you can go first. Start.
Yeah. And so also IEPs and 504s definitely get misconstrued very frequently. So we kind of want to just clear up what is 504 and what is IEP, and we have some other information too. So what is a Section 504 plan? It's a legal document that prohibits discrimination based upon a physical or mental impairment that would substantially limit a major life activity and access to the general curriculum or the setting. 504 plans ensure that the needs of these students are met as similarly as appropriately as possible to the needs of non-disabled regular education students. So students on Section 504 plans are considered regular education students.
So you guys have this in front of you. So, so what is an IEP? One of the things I wanted to point out is that on Jen's slide, she also had FAPE, which is a free appropriate public education, which is the criteria for both of these programs. The difference is that an IEP plan is written for a child who is identified as having a disability that impacts their access to the curriculum, sort of the simplest way to say it. And that in order to access the curriculum, they need specialized instruction and related services. So we just talked about some pieces of the IEP in terms of we need to be sure to have goals that are measurable with objectives, talks about their current levels of performance and the accommodations and modifications. We'll get to more of that in just a minute.
So this is a Venn diagram that we got from a source, just kind of showing you a visual difference of the IEPs and the 504s and how they interlap. And I know that Robin was telling me earlier on the IEP side, it does say provides accommodations, but we also want to specify that IEP is modifications. Yes, exactly.
So I think Jen found this visual, which I think I've not seen it done this way, but I think it's very helpful to see them this way because it shows that there is overlap, which I think is partly, to Jen's point, is partly why people sometimes get confused about the difference. But there is commonality between the two. And yes, the modification piece is a very important part of the IEP that is not true of the
So these are just some examples of similarities, accommodations that could be seen in a 504 plan or on an IEP, depending on what the student's needing us to accommodate to.
And the important piece, and I think that one of the easiest ways to understand accommodations is that they impact how the students learn. So you'll see in the next slide the differences. So the reason that these are applicable to 504 and IEPs is that it's just about how the students learn. So we broke it up into 3 pieces: access to the setting, demonstrating knowledge, and access to the curriculum. And as I was telling Jen this afternoon, I should have asked Jared, I could not for the life of me get the 3rd box to be lowercase.
Oh yeah. Didn't ask Jared.
Oh my God. I wasted so much time trying to get it and just finally gave up. So anyway,
I didn't even notice that.
Oh, I'm so glad. Oh, that's good that I didn't spend any more time than I did trying to fix it. So this just gives you an idea of the accommodations that our students can use. And obviously the accommodations, when you write a 504 plan or you write an IEP, it is not, we're going to slap all these accommodations up on a plan. It's based on the disability and what the student needs.
And these, I'm sorry to interrupt.
That's okay.
And these, like an accommodation would be something that's outside of our DCAP, our district curriculum accommodation plan, that's accessible. They would need something more. Like a lot of times, like proximity seating used to be like, yes, but now all students can have proximity seating. So 504 has become much more specific and much more targeted and lately.
Yeah, exactly. And more individualized to the student.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's true of IEP accommodations as well. We've been working trying to get away from what are best practices, because if best practices in universal design for learning are what we're teaching, which we are, then an IEP shouldn't have to spell those things out. So that's to your point. So the biggest difference, and this is an important one, is that an IEP, there are modifications to the student's curriculum. And they are not a modification. If a student needs a modification, then they are not on a 504, should not be on a 504 plan. And the difference is what a student learns is taught or expected to learn. So that there are just a few examples of completing different homework problems than peers, could be fewer homework problems than peers, could be shorter writing assignments. But I think the piece to really emphasize is that though it is true in some cases that they may learn something completely different, generally speaking, we're still getting the kids to grade level standards. We may just in a lot of cases be reducing the amount of work that they have to do. So again, it's very individualized. You can't use a broad brush. I would call your attention to the website at the bottom of that page, which is understood.org. It's amazing. A tremendous resource for special education, 504 or IEPs.
So just a little bit about some data that I've taken over the year. I know I spoke to you guys last year about how I go into the classroom and I do fidelity checks on these accommodations to see which ones are being implemented and how frequently. So just quickly, my two most frequent accommodations I observed during these fidelity checks are some sort of comprehensive check-ins for understanding. I saw this happen 106% of the time I went into a classroom and that accommodation was applicable. And then in addition to that, the breakdown of instruction was seen 91% of the time. Evaluations this year, we had 59 initials from pre-K to 12, and we had 39 3-year reevaluations. Meetings, we had 113 annual meetings and 15 reconvene meetings, which is significantly less than we had last year, which we'll talk a little bit about later, our Tier 1 initiative, but that's just a little bit of proof that's showing we're doing what we need to help these students at a Tier 1 level. And then just some additional information, I had 15 students graduate off 504 plans this year, and this is a working number throughout the year, obviously, but at Woodland, we have 30 students with 504 plans, Powder Mill, 58 students, and then at SRS, we have 128 currently.
So to these
Can I
numbers,
just ask?
oh, of course, I'm sorry.
Did this increase from the prior year or was it about the same?
What are you referring to?
That last piece,
The
the
number
number
of students that are coming in at these groups.
It actually, the 15 was an increase from last year, so we had more students graduate off this year. Yep, and then the roster numbers tend to fluctuate, so this is pretty average and consistent with what we've had for last year too.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to know where we are on the curve.
Yeah.
So this information is sort of echoes what Jen was talking about. And I think the takeaways here are in 21-22, there were 58 meetings held for 58 students in grades K through 5 to determine eligibility or re-eligibility. So these were not initials. There were 58 meetings held for students grades K through 5. 14 of those were found ineligible. In 21-22, 72 students in grades 6 through 12, 16 were found ineligible. This year, with a little bit more to go, we have 45 students in grades K through 5 that meetings were held, 9 were found ineligible, and 59 students in grades 6 through 12. The piece that we're going to move on to that Jen alluded to, what I think you'll see is if you look at 21-22, we've got 58 and 72. I'm looking at those two numbers between K through 12. This year we've had 45 and 59, which is a decrease in terms of the number of meetings that we have a hypothesis, which takes us to our next slide. So this is the MTSS. This is from the MTSS blueprint for Massachusetts. If anyone hasn't read it, I highly recommend it. Jen and I are huge fans of this logo, or graphic, it really is, that demonstrates and talks about the difference between Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. Do you want to take the first part and pass the Tier 1?
Yeah, so the Tier 1 is the universal support. So this is kind of our universal design for learning. Teachers doing best practice and providing students with that high quality curriculum that provides options and choices for how they learn. So, you know, we ask teachers to do this on a universal level.
And I would say that tier 1 certainly is where we think that a lot of the strength has come. It's been a huge focus in terms of the curriculum with Jenny too. And I think that is beginning, that as well as the interventions that we have put in place have begun to make a difference in terms of the supports that our students have had. I think that there are some cases, especially being at Woodland, I've seen cases where we might otherwise have identified a disability where we're actually identifying it as a deficit, especially after the pandemic. I think we generally, and we were not alone, quick to say, oh, this child may have a disability, when in fact, it's a deficit because they didn't have the instruction, depending on their grade level. So tier 1 is the universal support. Tier 2 is a targeted support. It can be in or out of the classroom. A lot of our interventions, our reading interventions and math interventions are at this tier 2 level. The tier 3 intensive supports are similar, can be done by reading or math interventionists, but generally in a smaller group and perhaps a smaller amount of time. One piece where people tend to get confused, tier 3 is not special education. What really should happen is that a student should move through the tiers and then be referred for special education. You know, that doesn't always happen, and that's okay, but I think for the system to work the best, it is best for a child to move from tier 1 to tier 2 to tier 3 if necessary. The other piece of the graphic that I like is the arrows going both ways, because a student is not a tier 2 student forever. If they're in tier 2 for an extended period of time, that means the intervention is not working. We got to try something else, whether that's tier 3 or a different intervention altogether.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Can I just ask a question about who's providing these various supports? I know that the classroom teachers are providing the tier 1 supports, but what about tier 2 and tier 3? Typically, and this may vary from school to school setting, but typically, who is responsible for providing these supports?
So there are reading and math interventionists at both Woodland and Powder Mill. At Powder Mill, actually at Woodland and Powder Mill, the special education teachers have also received training in SIPs, which is what the reading interventionists are using as well. So, so at these 2 buildings, it's the reading interventionists and the special ed teachers. So.
And then what about at SRS?
SRS has a special education teacher who does specialized reading with a small group of kids in the Wilson, primarily in the Wilson reading program. We've talked about trying to add some supports up there. So there's definitely, but I think it's super important to front load. And I do think that we've definitely seen some shifts and some success where, as you know, we would get as a former grade 5 special education teacher, I would get kids who their previous teachers had said, you know, they can read, no problem, and they can read, but then they would get to where this more complex text, which is why we shifted to the SIPs and the Wilson and the decoding stuff. And there's been a huge shift and a lot of success in terms of the kids developing those skills.
And on this, for our sake of our presentation, we're focusing on the academic aspect of these tiers, but there's also behavioral, social, emotional. So adjustments counselors do a lot of tier 2, tier 3 work with these kids as well.
And Jenny's been very good about utilizing the coaches as well. Amber Hall's done a lot of work in the ELA in middle school with some small groups in supporting the teachers. Beth Grady's done some really nice work with some math and science as well. And we've tried using some teachers where there may be an extra free period to do some intervention and seeing how the model works here or there with some pull out and then push in. And so there's been some different things at SRS that we're trying to do at that tier 2 level, because that is probably the tier that the amount of responsibility and work that falls on the classroom teacher during tier 2 is quite a bit. So trying to support the teachers at that level is what I know we're trying to figure out at SRS.
Thank you so much for mentioning the coaches. You're absolutely right. At Woodland and Carolina, Laura Markowitz and Beth Brady do the reading of the math, and Amber is terrific as well. So they are a huge source of support and resources and all of that.
So just how we were talking about our hypothesis on how we think these tiers initiative has really helped our process through IEP and 504. These are some testimonies from teachers, staff, other staff, parents, students that are, you know, why we come to work every day, why our work is meaningful, and it shows that what we're doing is actually helping these kids, which is the most important thing.
Can I have a question?
Yeah.
Are you seeing a much greater increase on 504s for social, emotional, like anxiety and depression post-COVID?
Yeah, absolutely.
I have 2 additional questions. Looking at the IEP data, you know, you're mentioning in each of these categories the number of students that are found ineligible.
Yeah.
So could you just speak to eligibility versus ineligibility and why, you know, why they often are found ineligible?
Sure. So the children can be referred by their parents. They can be referred by SAT team, student assistance team members. And so as soon as a referral is made, we do a series of tests, the school psychologists do, so cognitive education, and then speech and language or anything else that is deemed necessary. And then the team convenes with the parents to talk about the results of the evaluations, as well as how the child is doing in academically, but also socially, emotionally, and all the other pieces. So the measure for an IEP is the disability impacting access to the curriculum. And there are times when that is super clear cut that yes, the student may have ADHD, but is doing just fine because they have accommodations through a DCAP or something like that. There may be another student who has ADHD and is not being as successful. So that's really that's what we look at, but with a super broad lens.
So a follow-up question, and it's hard to tell from these numbers. Would you say that you have more students on 504s than IEPs or vice versa?
I think our number for IEPs is about 230.
I'm trying to think. I did it out for each school, so I'm trying to add them quickly. I think it's a.
Could you go back?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So you have more on 504s.
Yes. Which that's the least restrictive environment. Correct. So that's
correct.
Yeah.
Which is theoretically the way it should be. In my own professional practice, it has never been that way. So I was just wondering if you could speak to that. You know, I think that maybe I'm jumping to the conclusion here that that's been a district effort to start with maybe 504 and then before going to IEP, or is that not the way that it works? Or to it's just, so in my own personal practice, the pattern is very different. I have far more students on IEPs course, and I always had for, you know, nearly 25 years.
Yeah, I think that if I may, I think that part of the difference is Jen and Jen's role. I think that having a single person do this job has helped to clarify and highlight the positives of a 504. Having said that, she's also very good about, you know, this child doesn't need a 504. So I think that she has brought a ton to this position. I think that also it's very interesting that you say that, but that's your experience, Pam.
In a different district.
Yeah,
so,
no,
again,
yes, yeah. I mean that, and I think that sometimes people think that, you know, if you are found ineligible for an IEP, well, then you'll just go to a 504. No, that's not, it's not, 504 isn't a sort of a step down.
Constellation.
A constellation
prize,
prize. So I think your point is a good one. And I think that we're doing a really good job with Jen's guidance in terms of this is a general education plan. So these are general education supports. And I think that she's done a lot in terms of highlighting for teachers what the expectations are, checking in with the kids as all of her, most of those are 504. She asked for them, and then I was like,
Wait a minute.
Special ed staff, they had any. So I did.
oh, I'm gonna have
good.
to, we came up with
They're really good.
They were good, they were good.
so I don't know if that you should.
Yeah, well, I also think it's hard. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just, as you were talking, I was just thinking it might also be part of the district's global initiative. Yes.
Yes.
That's our
exactly.
hypothesis, yeah.
Oh, am I stealing your hypothesis?
No.
But yeah,
No, wait a
I
minute.
do, I think that, you know, in maybe the past 4 years, that's been a very important district goal, and a part of a lot of teacher PD. So I think that maybe has kept the numbers down.
It's been a big paradigm shift. It didn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
It's still, but I have to say, with this growing, and I asked Jen, I think Jen's relationship that she is able to build personally with a lot of the students at the regional school, checking up on them in their classrooms when a lot of times kids had a 504 and that was the end of it, and there was no checking up on them. Like they didn't quite know where they fit. And I think that personal connection, that personal relationship means a lot to a lot of the students, especially if it's in a social emotional.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I also, you know, I told you guys last year, from grade 7 to 12, I meet with every single student and I tell them about their accommodations. I'll even, if they're struggling, I'll email them their accommodations and I'll tell them, make sure to use this language, you know, and teachers really appreciate that. The students really appreciate that. So thank you for saying that, because I spend a lot of my day doing that.
Huge difference at the regional. So wouldn't you say that, Joe?
Yeah, I think it starts, I mean, when I started here, Terry Day, who was a former teacher here, did it once a week after school from 2 to 3 504 meetings. And then we tried with some teachers in a stipend position and trying to find someone that was really knowledgeable and have that understanding what the difference is between a 504 and an IEP is they knew the difference, but it's challenging to keep the two separate. And again, Jenny and I had a number of conversations, and to Jenny's credit, she found the money and recognized the need for creating this 504 coordinator position. And to her credit, Jen's done a tremendous job of making it an invaluable position across the district for all the reasons that her and Robin have highlighted, but Superintendent Willard as well. I think she not only is a resource for the students and checking up on them, but for the teachers as well. I think what Jenny tries to find all the time is tier 2 supports for the teachers in the classroom to keep the students in the classroom as much as possible. And Jen is a resource for them, and she quickly became a recognized resource for the teachers as well. So it started, it took a long time to get to the point, but now that we have the position and the right person in place, it seems to be thriving in all 3 buildings.
Thank you.
Agreed.
Can I ask a question? With the ineligibility.
Yeah.
When you have a parent who strongly feels their child should be receiving these services, but your testing shows otherwise, how do you handle that? Are there any services offered to it? Yeah, like, you know, it's not uncommon being in the community, you hear, oh, they're not doing their job. They're not helping my child who needs an IEP. So when you're in that situation, how do you handle that? Where can you refer the child to any other services to not appease the parents, but to make
Find the
their
middle ground.
right, to make their concerns feel validated, and it's not a matter of the district ignoring their child.
Sure.
Am I making any sense?
Yes,
Because
I mean,
it's-
I would hate to think that anyone thinks that we're ignoring their child, but I understand what you're saying, because the team isn't always in agreement in terms of what all the pieces say. As far as, recommending other services, I think the interventionists that we've talked about are a piece of it. Certainly if there's a child that we have evaluated, I would talk to the principal to see, is this child in reading intervention or not intervention? Where are the parents in that conversation? I think it is very much about communication. And I think that, because you're right, parents can see their children struggling and think that an IEP is the answer. What we really want to figure out is, what is the answer? Let's forget about what it's called for a minute and decide what supports does this child need. And there's so many resources in the district, and I certainly encourage people, if they feel that way, to get in touch with any of us, because I don't want any parent to feel like they've not been heard. So
right.
my answer is super general. I hope.
No, but you're not just turning someone away as kind of, I mean, I would never expect our district to do that, but there's someone's unhappy and they grumble and they make it known to people. And sometimes it's kind of like, that's not truly the case. So I just wanted to clarify that no one's turned away blindly, that you go through the process of the testing.
Yes.
And if services are needed, they're absolutely offered.
Yes. And it's not, it's not just the evaluations or the results of the evaluations. And there are often at these meetings, depending on the evaluations that were done, there can be anywhere from 6 to 8 staff members at this meeting to talk about what they saw, where does this all fit into the puzzle. So
it's not one individual.
But there's also steps
absolutely.
past that meeting.
Right.
Like you can also go to mediation, you can bring in.
Absolutely.
Yeah, at the state level, so it's not the end all,
Doesn't stop there.
right there.
Correct.
Parents have additional rights if they don't agree with the decision of the team. And that's part of Robin's job, is to say, look, this is our team decision. If you're not happy with it, then these can be your next steps.
Yeah. 504 too, we send the procedural safeguards home with every evaluation for parents to sign off on, giving them, next steps if they do feel like they need to take those.
But also, it's not, we find you ineligible, here you go, here's your rights, and goodbye. It's a group of educators around the table saying, we don't find you eligible, but this is what we can do in the classroom to support you. Here's some interventions that we're going to try, some data we're going to collect, and then move forward. So you're leaving with a plan. It might not be the plan that you wanted, but you're leaving with a plan where your student will be supported in a way by a classroom teacher or a counselor within the building.
And it often includes increased collaboration between parents and teachers anyway, which, is like you said, the true end game.
Thank you. That's
Actually, great question.
All right. Is that all?
That's it.
We're only at 27 minutes.
Full responsibility. Thank you very much. Yeah. So I believe that this is the only policy that is on the thing here. So everybody has this in your packets. I don't believe that we need to read through it. I believe you were also emailed this individually after the last meeting. We are going to vote later on to waive the multiple readings and vote to accept this because it should go into the handbooks of all preschools. So that was why we sort of pulled this separately from the policy manual, and we would prefer to have everybody approve it separately rather than all of section E. And there's nothing objectionable in this or, you know, strange. Anybody have any questions?
Well, the reason why we need to get it in is because you need to make people aware that there's cameras in the school. That's
Yeah, it was
Right.
advised that should be in the
Yes.
handbook,
Yes.
this is not correct.
Right,
right.
so watch.
That's where these cameras are going next time.
He's studying.
Gonna take it.
Escape for the wood.
Can't find me there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, yeah, until they put the cameras in the woods too.
All the street.
All right, down to action items.
Sure. Move to approve consent agenda items as listed above, minutes of 5/23/23 school committee meeting recommended.
Second. All right, nobody, no questions or comments, right? All right, let's vote. All in favor? Okay, this passes 4-0-0.
Move to approve the following wage increases for non-contract employees for the FY 2024. MECO coordinator Charlene Diaz, 2.25%. Speech language assistant Amy Barroso, 2.25%. Internal suspension monitor Sean Conchieri, 2%. Tutor translator Yekaterina Netdeoglo, $18.63 an hour. Para class 1 level 7. Tutor translator Nadisha Gladish, $18.63 an hour. Para class 1 level 7 recommended.
Second. Any questions or comments? All right, let's vote. 4-0-0.
Move to approve the agreement between the Southwick Telling Granville Regional School Committee and Joseph Trammell, Director of Finance and Operations, for the period of May 23rd, 2023 through June 20, 2025. Recommended.
Second. Questions? All right. Motion passes 4-0-0.
Move to approve the agreement between the Southwick Telling Granville Regional School Committee and Dr. Jenny Sullivan, Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction, for the period July 1, 2023 through June 30th, 2026. Recommended.
Second. Questions, comments?
Just give me 1 minute. I'm just going to have different endings. Just give me a minute.
Oh.
So Joe's should be through 2026 by through June 30th, 2026. I'm sorry, we're gonna have to go back and reread that one.
Okay. Does his, does it say?
That's what it
doesn't
says.
cover the-
FY 25 salaries in there. That means it would end at the 30th of 2026.
Effective July 25th, yep,
Okay, let me make sure. Okay.
okay, going back to reread. Action item C.
Yes. Move to approve the agreement between the Southwick Telling Granville Regional School Committee and Joseph Trammell, Director of Finance and Operations, for the period May 23rd, 2023 through June 30th, 2026. Recommended.
Second. Okay, take two. Had difficult.
Move to approve the agreement between the Southwick Telling Granville Regional School Committee and Dr. Jenny Sullivan, Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction, for the period of July 1, 2023 through June 30th, 2026. Recommended.
Second. Vote. 4-0-0.
Move to waive the second and the third reading of policy ECAF security cameras in school. Recommended.
Second. Vote. 4-0-0.
Move to adopt policy ECAF security cameras in schools. Recommended.
Second. Vote. 4-0-0.
Gonna read these three at once. Move to approve the 23-24 school year handbook changes for Woodland School with policy ECAF included. Move to approve the 23-24 school year handbook changes for the Powder Mill School with policy ECAF included. Move to approve the 23-24 school year handbook changes for Southwick Regional School with policy ECAF included. Recommended.
So moved. Second. 4-0-0. Okay, so we're done with H. So it is now time for reports. Superintendent Willard.
I do have one, it's just a housekeeping matter every year, part of the wellness program, we have to advise the school committee. Of the health advisory that they've met quarterly throughout the school year. In our November meeting, they reviewed the district wellness program policies, set goals related to our students and faculty's health and well-being. Subsequent meetings, we hosted guest speakers on topics relevant to the health of our school community and regularly measured progress toward our annual goals. Attached, please find the 2023 annual progress report for your review. You do not need to take any action. That's it's just a informational piece.
Thank you. Mr. Schmidt.
So tomorrow we'll be confirming salary agreements for staff and teachers in the district. So all teachers will have their salary agreements by early next week, have them signed and returned to us. Moving forward with the vestibule project at Potter Mill to have the reconfiguration of the windows and the doors in that first part. So Mr. Wykander has met with them and we have a plan in place to have that going this summer. Vapes will be installed this summer as well at the regional school and the 6th grade bathroom here. And working on the financing for the capital projects for 23 and 24 with the banks and the bonds. So some good projects in place and getting ready for the summer. And our last 4 buses for the fleet will be turned over to, or finally leased to OPVEC. So that will be it come July 1.
Go back to your first one. Do you do that with everybody every year? Salary agreements?
Yeah.
Like everyone does that?
Mm-hmm. Everyone gets a hard copy of a salary agreement that they sign and return to us before they leave, so we're all on the same page of what you're making and we can have it in payroll and make sure it's accurate, ready to go for the first paycheck in September.
And does it also include like various stipends and things like that, or is it just salary?
If we know what, no, I think it's
Just
I think
based on
it's just
salary.
yeah.
People think the contract, we have to keep saying, no, it's not contract, your contract is.
Your contract.
Yeah, this is really
This
just
is that.
Make sure they're aware that this is what you're increasing.
that what you
not
think
in-
you're supposed to get and what we think you're supposed to get is
Right.
the same and
Now, are there also like, for people who are not being rehired, do they
already
know
know.
that?
Yeah.
Subcommittees and liaisons. All right, let's run through this fast. Negotiations, I don't believe we have anything, right? Finance. Okay. LPVEC, both of our representatives are not
Erica's
here.
The
And
interviews
right now. So policy. I don't think we need to update you on anything. We did at the last meeting. Nothing has changed since our last. Do we have another policy subcommittee scheduled?
No.
And are we done for the summer? Okay. Buildings and grounds?
Nothing.
ILC, do you want to take it or do you want me to?
You can split that one. We had ILT today. We talked over a few things. First was AP English wanted a new textbook. They've been using the thing, I think she said, for 10 years. And how English is taught at college has changed. So more of, or like I should say less memorization, more, it sounds like almost like theory, like just kind of our math is, which I'll get to that one in a second. But more understanding than just memorizing. So she came asking for a new textbook. IEP Calculus did the same thing, again stating that calculus before used to be much more memorization, and even like our math initiative or a new curriculum for here is understanding more of the numbers than just memorization. Calculus at the college level is also the same thing. We've been using that book for like 10 years, so they're asking to use a different one. Pam had asked the question, we do get electronic books through that, and also electronic teacher materials, but they also get hardcover books. I believe Jenny is in his classroom of them, and then the teacher can also have one paper copy. We talked about.
So the committee is clear, those two books, one for AP English and one for AP Calc, were approved by ILT and they got the go ahead and purchase them. What is important for the committee to know is that they both fully meet the course exam descriptions, CEDs, by the advanced placement company. And if anybody is curious or wants to know, we have been provided with a sample table of content, sample chapter from the math, as well as kind of an overview of what the units and selected readings are for the English one. So I have that available to anybody if anybody is interested. I know that there have been, right. You know, there was a question previously at school committee level about approval of textbooks. So these two have been approved and are moving forward. We can put that on the website.
We talked a lot about Title I and how our interventions that we do have improved our kids' performances, I guess, in school. That was actually a really fun presentation from math leadership team. Yeah. As one of the teachers, I'm going to totally butcher her name, down at Woodland. So
Fran.
Yeah, yes.
There you go.
First grade. Yeah. But anyway, she was the cutest thing and so bubbly and so happy about her math initiative, which I think is wonderful. It brings a lot. Their plan is to bring joy to both students and adults of math in life. So they actually did. I remember this. I didn't go, but they had 3 kind of family-centered events this year. There's one in the fall, is at the high school. It includes K through 12. Like anyone can go. It doesn't, not just our little children. The whole district can go with their families included. And it was like fall in love with math, and winter was February, is like cozy up with math or something like that. And there was a math carnival in the spring with a bunch of just like games that are math focused. They get prizes. There's different like light refreshments. They've had NHS volunteer. They have the math team from the high school volunteer at the last one. Sounded like a wonderful time. But they're really trying to get more involvement. Just to get more involvement with our parents and our families, because that's one of the Title I things. Yeah, she was the cutest thing and so happy about it. I'm like, I need to go now. I should advertise that with some pictures from this year for next year. They also did a go for books was the most recent for an ELA family involvement, which had a great turnout here as well. So you talk about Title I.
So yeah, so then Laura and Beth walked us through Title I data, basically showing, looking at student data and looking at whether our interventions are working, basically. And generally, to sum it up, they are absolutely. We need more interventionists. We're hiring more interventionists. Interventionists obviously are key to our level 2, tier 2 supports. And then we ended with the results of the family survey. I think everybody received that survey. It got pretty good. I would say pretty good numbers in response. It was definitely highlighting the work that we've done recently towards improved family engagement and improved communication.
Most was 117, I think, people responded. Most of them said they knew how to get in touch with their teacher, that they've spoken with them. They want to know more of like curriculum and like what their students are being taught to then and then help them at home, and kind of more parents want to know how they can help better at their home.
More academically.
Yeah.
And so that's where the brainstorming is now. We've been working really hard to increase communication, and we're still working in that direction.
So just to piggyback on that, I meet with all of the new hires. We just hired a new math teacher up at the regional school. And part of his artifacts that he brought in to share with me is he sends home a weekly newsletter to all of his families. And it tells them exactly what they're working on this week, all the homework, what the parents need to know and everything. And he does it every single week for the parents.
I want to highlight one teacher,
That's-
Miss Duquette. In first grade, I love her to death. I've had her a couple of times. She does the same thing. And she asked me multiple times if I'm ever at the school, like if it's too much correspondence, and I feel like you can never have too much. My mother of four, I forget a lot of things. She will email us every Sunday with like, we filled our marble jar. This is what you need on Thursday. This is what we're doing this week in math and ELA and library days on Tuesday. And like, there's a lot of information in them, but honestly, if you want to know what's going on in their class, you know.
There
Yes,
are a
right.
couple at the regional school. I have to look at my emails, but I do get from
That's great.
my 10th graders, there are a couple of teachers.
And that was one of the things we were
Keep up
talking
with
about.
what's going on.
It's helpful. It is. Yeah.
They also said something because remember what we get like a flyer. Well, my younger kids get it a lot of like what the next unit is, I guess, in class, and we'll call it that. And I mean, my third grader forgets to give me stuff all the time. I have to ask for it. So email seems to be the way to go. Otherwise, was it the powder mill handbook that highlighted that students' responsibilities are supposed to hand in the paperwork you get at school? I just said that. And I laughed because I'm like, powder mill feels like forgives me.
Doesn't get any better.
But so maybe email directly to the parent instead of flyer, so it
Yes.
might be our way to go.
Mhm.
All right, thank you. Let's see
Good.
here.
We haven't had a long one.
Yeah.
Study.
I've got
Okay.
something I want to interject here. Up until 2 years ago, we used to recognize the Tallinn kids graduating. We used to put a billboard up.
In the town time?
Is it
in
where?
Tallinn and out of the green. And it's been missing for 2 years.
Who's in charge of it?
And what made it?
All right, don't think I'm-
It has now reappeared.
Oh.
So the three Tallinn kids that graduated this year were on the sign, and everything else. Yes, it just magically appeared. I didn't do it.
Thank you to whoever returned it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great.
Senior prank perhaps?
No, it wasn't a senior grant. No, it was a little deeper than that.
That's great.
Oh, yeah, I was glad now I was one of the ones that bitched, but that's.
Well,
Complaint.
I'm glad that it worked.
Anyway.
All right, I think that taps us out for subcommittee and liaisons. Anybody else on here want to add anything? All right, so it is time for our last public comment. Seeing none. Committee discussion. So I already mentioned old business that we're adding this policy to the 2023-24 handbooks. This will be our last regularly scheduled school committee meeting of the year.
At the 20th is the last day of school.
If anyone chooses.
All right. I will now entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Can I second myself? All right. Okay, I have to take a roll call vote, I think, for this. Desiree? No, I don't. Okay, good. Hands up. 4+. 4+. 0.
Well done.
It's not big. What is that?